Doug Thompson here. We're in the shop, and I thought we'd do a video on the Hossfeld bender. I know there are lots of videos out there on the Hossfeld bender, but I use it a lot, and I have done different things with it, both cold bending and hot bending. So anyway, so this is the main frame. This is obviously the swinging frame, and I have it set up for kind of the most basic thing that it does. The Hossfeld bender is very versatile. Here's the manual. And it has all different things that you can buy for the bender. It's a wonderful bender, really well made. I probably had this for 35 years. So what I'm going to do right now is just show the basic operation of bending. You need 3 points, much like this. If I were to bend this rod around my knee, 1, 2, 3, I would bend it. So on the Hossfeld, same thing. We have kind of the fulcrum point and then 2 bending pins. Obviously, these bending pins can be moved along any of these holes to change the bending geometry, tooling, whatever you're going to do. But obviously, the basic operation is putting a part in here and then just pulling on the swinging frame to bend something. So when you buy the Hossfeld kit, if indeed you do buy the Hossfeld kit, it'll come with certain types of factory pins, factory rollers, all different types of rollers for doing different things. And you can also make your own stuff. So like this is a factory roller, but these 3 are rollers that I've made for different jobs. So one aspect of bending, and you do it a lot, you end up with tons of tooling. So some of this is factory tooling, and then some of it is tooling that I've made myself. So there are rollers of all different types. I've got a specific die here for rolling tubing. This is a shape for some project. I can't even remember what it was. These are fairly useful in that sometimes you have to work with a really large radius and you don't want to mark up the part. So this is just a very gradual bend here. I think this was even flatter. There's a little tiny bit of radius here. And then I think this was to hold a piece of tubing. So I have the 2 pieces of flat bar. But anyways, the whole central point is that you can have relatively simple tooling that you either buy or make, or you may have a dedicated project where you have to do a lot of bending. I had to bend some 1-inch aluminum tube, and I had to make 4,800 bends, a lot of bends. So this is a setup where I have the radius that I'm going to need to bend with a setup to kind of capture the tooling. And then I've got essentially a flag fixture here where the first bend occurred here, and then I lifted this up, and then the second bend occurred here. My philosophy is that if you got to do a lot of them, then you really spend time on tooling so that everything comes out quickly and accurately. So today I thought we'd just do a couple of bends. These are a lot of shapes that I've done in the past, and I'm going to cut up some 8 by 3/4 material and just bend them and just talk a little bit about what I'm doing. But I'm just going to make a simple 45-degree bend with this. So I'm just going to pull it like this, and I'm going to make about a 45-degree bend. Now, if I was doing a lot of them, I'd have a template or something like that to check the first one. But then if I had to make a lot of them, then this is a stop that I made. I drilled a bunch of holes in the ring around here, and I would place the part in the bender and then set this stop in such a way that when the frame hit the stop, I'd be done. That way I could do repeatable bends, and then my degree of bend would be the same. If you buy the same material. If this material is all the same, you're going to get very accurate results. So that's 45 degrees. Let's just say I need to make a 90-degree bend. I'll typically bend it, look over the top. I've got 90 degrees, more or less. Oftentimes, if I'm doing work quickly, I'll overbend it just a little bit, and then at the table, I'll open it up. It takes very little pressure, much less pressure, to open up something than it does to close it.
Okay.
So now I'm going to bend 180 degrees. I'll go by it a little bit because I know there's going to be some spring back. The harder the material, the more spring back or return you're going to have. So I'll go ahead and bend it to 180, and I'll go by a little tiny bit, and I pretty much got it. I can actually squeeze this part with my hand to get 180. There are a lot of different ways to make circles, but let's say I had to make one, and I got to do it quickly. And so let's assume I've got to make one circle of 2-inch diameter ID out of 1/8 by 3/4, and I got to do it quickly. I'm going to set the Hossfeld up with a rolling die here. I'm going to have just the pin here, and I should be able to feed the material through. I want to bend more than 180 degrees. Let's see if I can get it. So I'm running out of room right there. So this is, I'm trying to bend 180 degrees, but my setup isn't quite right, but I didn't give up. So I've stacked some shims in between the bending pin and the form die, and I should be able to bend this and get more than 180 just by adding those shims into there. So then all I have to do is make another bend like this, put them together, cut them, and then I can make one circle. So it's a fast way to do that. So I have essentially the compression pin set up. This is going to do primarily compression bending. But for certain shapes, I want to use the Hossfeld designed draw system. So I'm going to put this pin here. I put the bending, I think they call it the bending dog, and then this other pin that will hold it together. I've got a roller here. I've got the pin in the main frame, and I'm just going to make a 90-degree bend, flip it over, and make another 90-degree bend to make an S-hook. I'll tighten up the drum, and I'll go ahead and bend 180. Again, I'm going to go past it just a little tiny bit. I release it, check it. I think I've got it. So now I'll turn this over, and I'll do the bending on the opposite end, and I flipped over the part. And I'm going to bend to 180. There's as much art as there is science to bending. But in this way, I've made a little S-hook. So in this case, I'm going to make a centered eye. I've got a piece of 1/4-inch round bar just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to tighten that up, do a little bit more, and I'll quickly flip it over. Again, I want the bending point to be somewhere in here. I may have to move the pin. So I've pulled the swinging frame out, and I've set up to use the scroll bending jig on. Typically this is set up for 3/16-inch wide material. This is 3/16 by half. So typically you start the bend a little bit. You make sure the rod is all the way in and indexed in the bender. Then I'm going to make a little bend, and I'm going to swing this around. So I'll start here and make a little tiny bend. Then I'm going to see if I can turn that around and get really close to that, because this has to be fairly close to the bending die or you won't get a clean bend. And sometimes you have to kind of work it back and forth a little tiny bit until it fully engages here. Now I've got it, and then you can wrap it around to whatever dimension you want. If I've got to go beyond that, I can take that and flip it like that. I've got enough engagement where I should be able to pull that around. I'm looking at this. I want the bar to conform to the scroll form. And I keep pushing it until I get what I want. You can mark this several different ways to do that. And then that way, and again, sometimes you can have to pull this up to get it out of here. But it will make, a nice little scroll. Thanks for watching. I've done maybe 5% of what can be done on the Hossfeld bender. Leave a comment in the comment section if you have specific questions about what I've done, or you have interest in something else that can be done on the Hossfeld.